Hello everyone, welcome back to the Environment and Climate Change session. Just get your attention in the room. If you could take a seat or move outside if you're having a chat, thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next session. And it's actually our last session for the stream. So for this one, the last topic that we've got is Rare Butterflies Hold Hope for the Future of Far East Gippsland. And this is presented by Georgie from the Threatened Species Conservancy. So welcome up.
So hello, thank you all for coming to listen to me today to talk about how butterfly conservation can provide hope for the future. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we gather on today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, but also the traditional owners of where I live and work in Apollo Bay, the Gadabanud people, and also the traditional owners of the land of which this work was conducted on, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So I'm a threatened species ecologist from the Threatened Species Conservancy. So we are an independent, small, non-for-profit organisation that was recently set up to help address the extinction crisis that we are currently experiencing. Australia has one of the highest extinction rates in the world, yet many species are likely to be slipping unnoticed into extinction. We work with communities to foster connections with the natural world, as well as undertaking important on-ground actions and threatened species assessments. We particularly aim to focus on the more forgotten species that would, without targeted conservation efforts, would disappear, highly likely disappear very soon. So for example, some of these species are pink-tailed worm lizards, enigmatic grevilleas, and invertebrates such as butterflies. So insects as a whole are globally experiencing significant decline, as demonstrated by this graph. Basically, it shows that around 27 years ago, researchers in Germany showed that on average, they were finding around 10 grams of insect biomass per day compared to 2015, where they were finding less than 2, which is a scary 75% decline, and this is just one of many studies. A more familiar phenomenon in Australia in particular is what we're calling the windscreen effect. So 30 years ago, after a drive on a country road, your car windscreen would be smothered in insects like this photo, but that just isn't happening to the extent that it is anymore. So this loss of insect abundance and diversity is expected to have cascading effects on food webs, as they are a key food source for many larger species, like this bee eater here. They also provide really important ecosystem services such as pollination, pest control and nutrient cycling. TSC believe butterflies are a perfect flagship species. I've recently started using the term that butterflies are like the birds of the insect world. And by this I mean, well, firstly, we can see them with our naked eye, unlike many other insect species. They also share our waking hours, and therefore they can be appreciated and photographed, unlike a lot of other insects. They can even be photographed on a handheld device quite easily. And also, butterflies are already loved and celebrated by people, and there is enough knowledge about them in the scientific community to understand what we need for conservation. Unlike many other insect groups, which we are still finding and describing new species all the time. Some species have documents written about them. This is an action statement written in Victoria under state, because these species are listed under state legislation. And this one here is written about the small ant blue butterfly, one of my target species, which only has one last known location left in Victoria. However, a lot of these documents were written almost 20 years ago, and nothing, well, not much, and if not anything, has been done that has been written in this document. And so what I mean is by intended management actions is things like research and monitoring, basic community education, and management. So this is where TSC comes in. But before I want to go into the work of TSC, I just want to go over some basic butterfly terminology. So I'm sure most of you here would be familiar with the Hungry Caterpillar kids book, which goes over a basic life cycle of a butterfly. But I wanted to highlight that many species of butterflies aren't like that hungry caterpillar character. They actually eat a very specific, they only eat specific foods. And the food that they eat are what we would call a host plant. And some species also have specific ant associations, and we would call this host ants. The adult butterflies will lay their eggs near an ant nest where the caterpillars will hatch. The ants will take care of the caterpillars. The ants will receive a sugary reward. They pupate and they emerge from the ant nest as an adult butterfly. The adult butterfly time is called the flight period, and the flight period differs between species, so within length and time of year. And during the flight period, some species of butterfly actually perform what we call hilltopping behaviour, which adults will fly to the closest peak in the area where males will compete for territories. And females will choose the males based on the male's strength and ability to hold its territory. So just showing that a butterfly life cycle is not quite as simple as the hungry caterpillar suggests. Oh, that's my little butterflies just flying to the top. And so over the 2021 and 2022 butterfly season, Threatened Species Conservancy ran butterfly surveys across Victoria, which is highlighted by the blue diamonds here. We ran targeted searches for 7 rare and data-efficient species in Far East Gippsland, and we also went on to search for the small, rare and cryptic, small and large ant blue butterflies throughout the rest of Victoria. So these are just some of the locations that we travelled to, and you can see that from some of these photos we are on the top of a hill because these ant blue butterflies will perform that hilltopping behaviour. So we're targeting those hilltopping adults. So we conducted 357 butterfly surveys across Victoria. One survey equals 4 3-minute active searches, whereby we are, depending on what species we're targeting, we'll look around known host plants, but also during the appropriate flight period and on the top of those hills. During the 3 minutes, we stop the timer when you see a butterfly to really try and get a good photograph. However, you might notice in this photo, this is in Little Desert National Park. This is actually, we found lots of hilltopping butterflies at this peak. You can see we're not really very high, but the landscape is really flat. So the butterflies will still travel to that peak because it's the highest in the region. And you can see in this photo that we are holding a net. Now, if any of you are familiar with twitchers and birders, you might have heard of the term little brown birds, which is pretty much when a birder can't ID something because it's too small and too hard and it's brown and it's small. Now, in the butterfly identification, we have a similar challenge for little blue butterflies, also known as LBBs. That's why we have a net, because we can't get, it's very difficult to get good photos, so we would catch them, put them into a clear container until we get a really good photograph for identification and then release. So we also conducted 57 active host ant searches because these ant blue butterflies that we were targeting rely on a species of ant called coconut ants. It's a genus, sorry. And as the name suggests, they smell exactly like coconuts. So the next time you're having a pina colada, just have a think about that. And they also produce this really distinctive nest, so we can find them by eye and by smell. We collected the data for these surveys using many different online applications. There are significant benefits for using online data collection, such as the ease of teaching volunteers and also the reduced time that it takes to input data. We used a Melbourne-based company which offer their services free to non-for-profits called ProofSafe, as well as an online freeware called EpiCollect. These two platforms both allowed us to design our own forms and collect additional data such as butterfly behaviour as well as fire history, particularly in Far East Gippsland, where we were looking at the presence of butterflies post Black Summer bushfires. You might be wondering why not iNaturalist, but we did use iNaturalist particularly. This is important for collating community observations as well as that community identification and expert identification of our butterflies. There's also another app called Butterflies Australia that I'd recommend you download on your phone. Going forward, this is a fantastic way to record survey effort. It doesn't allow to collect those additional data that we needed for these surveys, but you can still collect basic survey parameters, and also it collects that survey effort. So TSC also participated in and ran several community events, which were all extremely successful. As I mentioned earlier, people truly love butterflies and they get excited by being offered an opportunity to contribute to their conservation. This photo here in the middle is from a butterfly gathering that we held in Malakuta as a wrap-up of the post-bushfire project, and it was just amazing because we had such a huge level of excitement and interest from the Malakuta community and surrounds, because they're just really excited to have an opportunity to help conserve species in their backyard, and this was really important to them in to raise hope post the tragic Black Summer bushfires. So from these surveys, we gained some really exciting results. Firstly, we detected hilltopping adults of the large ant blue at Genoa Peak, which was a heavily burnt area in Far East Gippsland. This suggests that this species was able to survive through the fires, which we think could be due to the fact that they might have been sheltered in those ant nests. And this species is classed as endangered under Victorian legislation. We also detected the common penciled blue on a mature currajong tree, and although the name suggests otherwise, this species is actually identified to be extremely data deficient, and our results really show that we need to be considering preserving mature currajong trees. And currajong trees are really important to Indigenous people, so this is a great opportunity to foster this cultural link to enhance conservation efforts. And this is a data deficient species. A community member detected another target species, the checkered sedge skipper in Gypsy Point, which is one of the few places that was unburnt in Far East Gippsland, suggesting that urban gardens could play an extremely important role as butterfly refuges during fires. And this is another data deficient species. A community member also detected the endangered two-spotted grass skipper, which was found bordering the fire scar. And this species hadn't been seen in the area for around 10 years. Further south, we detected 15 coconut ant nests during intensive searching around the Mount Piper region, which is that last known location of the small ant blue butterfly. This is Kirsten, our training entomologist, peeking into a hollow found on a eucalyptus tree, which is where she found a coconut ant nest, which she then went on to find evidence of breeding of the small ant blue butterfly. So these eggs look really big here, but they're actually only about 1 millimetre long, which is about the size of a head of a pin. But these have been identified to most likely be the small ant blue butterfly, which is really exciting because a report had been published to suggest that this population might have been extinct, and we've just shown that it isn't. So we're really excited for spring because we'll be looking out for these ant nests to see the adult butterflies emerging. And I should say that the little butterfly that you might see flitting around on my sides is actually a large ant blue butterfly, but the small ant blue is pretty much looks exactly the same, it's just a little bit smaller. So these projects are just the beginning for butterfly conservation in Victoria. TSC, we're hoping to work with university to get some insects, some camera traps that are able to target insects that we can put on those coconut ant nests, so where we can monitor where we suspect there might be ant blue butterflies. And we also would really love to get a conservation dog project going because we can literally identify these ants by their smell. So I'd say that a dog can do that a hell of a lot quicker than we can. And by being able to find those breeding colonies, we can really understand where these butterflies are and what we can do to help preserve these breeding colonies. Some of these ant nests we're finding just on roadsides, and so being able to get significant roadside protection from where these ant nests are will be really important, but we really just need to be finding them first. So dogs will hopefully help with that. We've also established an ant blue butterfly working group, which is really just getting a bunch of experts in the same room together just to talk about where we're going with these species. And also updating these action statements and working with Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning to really start, using these documents that are written, because really it's just a lot of the time is that these species might still be there, but we just got to start looking, and sometimes it feels like you're searching for a needle in a haystack. And so on that note, we're really just hoping to keep getting people out there, fostering that connection between people and the natural world, because once people start looking for butterflies, it's almost like a little bit addictive. So we'll just keep getting people out there and showing them how beautiful and how fun it is.
Thank you very much, Georgie, for that. Oh, sorry. You keep going. Sorry, I thought you were
I know
wrapping
it
up.
was kind of like an end. So I've also got received funding through Coast Care Victoria, so down where I live in Apollo Bay, to get a butterfly demonstration garden going, which is going to hopefully help educate the public through signage and placing just at a local community hall, where we can construct a garden that will show the host plants that you can plant in your own garden to encourage butterflies into your garden. And this is just, again, butterflies as a flagship species. The more native host plants we can be planting in our gardens, the better it is for overall insect diversity. And so, those species that the community members found in our garden or on a street tree, this will hopefully increase the amount of refuges for species that we might definitely be needing in the face of extreme climate events into the future. So finally, I'd like to thank everyone involved with this work that I'm presenting on today, because it's really a huge effort from many people. In particular, I'd like to thank Jared Dale, my colleague, who had put in an incredible effort across Far East Gippsland, and also taught me and many others to better understand and appreciate butterflies. I'd also like to say a massive thanks to Kirsten Bowen, who's our training entomologist, who is conducting a placement with TSC, and she's just done such a great job looking for coconut ants and finding those tiny little ant blue eggs. I'd like to thank our funding bodies and of course our partner organisations, because this is always very much a collaborative effort, these projects, and finally volunteers and community, because we can't do it without them. And like I said, the more people on the ground looking for butterflies, the better off we're going to be, and it is a lot of fun. So if you are interested in running a community butterfly project in your region, please come have a chat and or send me an email, because it's something that we could be doing and rolling out, not just in Victoria but across the country. So thank you.
Thank you, and sorry for interrupting there. I'm sure there'll be a number of people going to the top of hills and looking for butterflies following this, but we've got some questions.
G'day, Georgie. Jerry Butler from South Australia. I chair Butterfly Conservation SA.
Oh, awesome.
We have a similar species that I monitor called Lycia limbaria. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have any hilltops that it goes to, but it certainly is unique in this lycaenid mutual symbiosis. We've developed quite a few education programs. We've got videos. We have an amazing photographer who's managed to capture what we call herding caterpillars. And what we are really looking for is not necessarily a rare butterfly, but a rarely seen butterfly because of that cryptic nature of the underwing. How else are you getting your message across besides those small signs and butterfly gardens? Are those flora and fauna guarantee fact sheets online, or? Yeah,
they're publicly accessible, and we are updating them as well, so working with DELP to get them updated, and then they'll go online, the updated versions, because at the moment it's the 20 years ago versions. But yeah, I've been recently ran a workshop in a school. It was on invertebrates in general, but did have a little bit of butterflies, and I'm going to be running butterflies in conjunction with that demonstration garden project. And yeah, really it's just to try and start, running more community events. The more we can do, the better. I have to say that I love Butterflies Conservation of South Australia, because a lot of the time I'm working in Victoria and I'm looking up and your website pops up. And so getting something similar in Victoria would just be amazing. I've been trying to work with Zoos Victoria as well, because they do a little bit of work, just a bit more of bringing people together, and it'd be great. So yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, I love that website.
Hi, I'm Louise Manning, but I'm also on the AXA Queensland chapter for citizen science. So you mentioned getting more people on the ground. Have you thought of partnering with the Australian Citizen Science Association and maybe writing? I do the newsletter for the Queensland chapter, but we also produce national newsletters.
Yeah,
Have
wow.
you thought about letting us know about your results? We do seed funding for different things at different times of year, and we promote scientific projects like this. So I just wanted to know. Or the other thing, the Great Southern Bio-Blitz, I don't know if you've heard about that, but if you're not doing it in October, you should be doing it, and let everybody know that from the 28th of October to the 31st of October, that's when they can do their iNaturalist photos, and you never know, you might just get something more.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, like just by that Far East Gippsland project with that real, targeted community effort, we really got, two of our target species were found by community citizen scientists. So yeah, definitely. I'm hoping to run a few butterfly presentations in my region anyway, with partnerships with Landcare on butterflies, so for the BioBlitz. So yes, definitely involved in that. In terms of Australian citizen science funding, that sounds great. I think one of the challenges of these projects at the moment has just been, it's been quite short periods of time, and you've got to target quickly when the butterflies are flying. But now we've had a bit of breathing time, and now we can look forward, and that sounds, and I think I've really been targeting on Victoria, but yeah, that sounds like an amazing way to really start going nationally. Thank you.
Hi, Georgie. Fantastic talk, thank you. I'm just wondering, in areas like Malakuta, post-bushfire, have you been surprised at what you have been able to find? Have the results been positive, or have you, I guess, has there been like detrimental impacts on the butterfly populations there?
Well, we were looking specifically for 7 species around Malakuta, and we found 4 of them, which is really, it's good news. The other 3, I think one of them probably might be regionally extinct. I don't think it's seen for like 80 years. But the other 2, it could just be effort. And like we were very surprised to find the large ant blue at Genoa Peak, because Genoa Peak was really heavily burnt, and we weren't really finding many other common butterflies there, but we did find the large ant blue, and the ant blue is that small and cryptic, so it was like super exciting to find it. But again, it's one of those things, the more we look, the more we might see. So I hope that answers your question, sorry.
Perfect. We've got time for one more question.
Yeah, I talked too
We're only
fast.
eating into afternoon tea, sorry. So.
Just wondering about the funding agreement. Do you have funding to continue it, to keep going, to monitor long term?
The Far East Gippsland project was funded by the Landcare-led bushfire recovery, so that's concluded. We'd love to go back, but yeah, it is definitely a challenge. The Ant Blue project is also very much coming to a close soon, but we're working really hard to try and take the next steps for that project, and that's using those conservation dogs, which is a really exciting project, and I'm having a lot of interest in that. So I'm hoping that that'll get funded and that'll help continue the project. But the best thing about that project is that I have a student who lives right next door to the field site, and she is the most passionate entomologist I have ever met, and she's pretty much just running that project and keeping it going through that period of no funding. So yeah.
And is there any on-ground component, like planting or anything that goes along with that?
Not with the Ant Blue project. Trying to do more of the host plant gardens. I'm doing that more around home in Apollo Bay, and with the Ambly project, it's they rely on those coconut ants, so it's really just focused on trying to find breeding colonies and where they are, and because without the ants, they're not going to be there. So, and understanding a bit more about why we find coconut ants somewhere but we don't find them elsewhere. Seem to be quite a lot around Mount Piper, but we couldn't find them anywhere else. You look at iNaturalist, they're all around Melbourne, in urban Melbourne. But the traditional, the historic range of the small ant blue is all around Melbourne. So it could be, the coconut ants are still there, but other requirements for those butterflies are no longer. So, Mount Piper region has been one of those strongholds for not just the ant blue butterflies, but also other threatened butterflies and moths. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Georgie, for that presentation. Our final presentation